So when I buy a mousepad, I usually go for something simple. It's usually black or grey and it has no affiliation to a certain game and it has amazing tracking. But what about the Fullfade mousepad from fullfade.com? It boasts that it's the best mousepad for Csgo, but how does it compare to the long-time stable mousepad of the Steel Series QCK? Let's find out. So when I first received this mousepad, I opened the tube and thought to myself, holy crap, they actually got the look down almost perfectly. It's a mousepad that looks exactly like a fade knife from Csgo. It almost felt as if I had taken the texture off my fade knife in-game and just plonked it onto a QCK+, and that's pretty much exactly what this product is. Measuring in at 450mm by 400mm and a thickness of 2.8mm, it's the same size as a QCK except for the thickness, which is 2.8mm on the Fullfade as opposed to the 2mm of the QCK+. It also comes with a stitched edge, a rubber base, and a fade knife design on the cloth finish. And I've got to say, it looks pretty sweet, especially if you're as much of a dedicated CS fan as I am. You appreciate those little things that, really make your setup look a little bit better. Now, when you also combine this with a RGB setup, like a Death Adder Chroma, it's a bit of a nice plus since, it moves through the spectrum of colors on the mousepad, and that's just something that you personally appreciate. So for me, this is a big plus. The design lives up to the game and the style of the knife which it represents, and it also combines with some setups that I never really thought of before. But how did it actually perform? Well, for me it was sometimes a hit and sometimes a miss. In terms of size, I had plenty of pad when I was working at 400 DPI, 800 DPI, and 1800 DPI throughout various games. These being Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Counter-Strike Source, Team Fortress 2, Battlefield 4, and Arma 3. And that here, along with the design, is really a huge positive. There wasn't really at any point a time where I felt like I needed more space or that I ran out of mousepad. And that's what you really want in a Counter-Strike mousepad, is plenty of space to move around and hit the shots that you want to hit and have no compromise. And that's what I got out of this. And on top of that, I had no issues tracking with my Razer Death Adder Chroma, and it worked just as well as my QCK in terms of tracking, and everything worked just fine. This mousepad, however, does have its problems, especially in how the mousepad lets certain mice move along its surface. Now take this for what you will, and I haven't tested this with more than just one mouse, because I don't have one, but I personally didn't like this pad in terms of the sense that it had no resistance when I was moving my mouse around on it. The Fullfade at times just felt like my mouse could easily move a little bit more than what I wanted it to when I was using it, and it often did throughout my playtests and sessions. Constantly, I had to put less force on the mouse and make my hands stop the mouse midway through a movement. Now on my QCK, there's this sense of resistance when you glide the mouse across it, where the mouse wouldn't move around as much or slide across the pad unless you really wanted it to move that way. And when you're a high sensitivity player like me, where you normally play on 800 DPI at 3.5 sensitivity, I found this pad hard to use. I did, however, find it better when I was at 400 DPI compared to the QCK, but that's because I guess if you're a higher sensitivity player, you want to be able to hit those flick shots a little bit easier, and that's what you'll get from this mousepad. But since I don't really play on that DPI anyway, I just didn't find this mousepad beneficial. So from my perspective, if you're a lower sensitivity player on this mousepad, it's probably really nice. But for someone like me, who plays at a higher sensitivity, I found it a bit troublesome. So if they can come out with some sort of alternative design where they have one for higher sensitivities and a little more resistance, then I'd say that this is almost perfect. Now on top of that, the mousepad is more expensive than the alternative options. Let's be honest, this lives in a spectrum where there's hundreds of mousepads that it has to compete against, and a good mousepad is the QCK+. Now if you go to somewhere like Web Harlan in Sweden, you can pick up a QCK+ for as little as 17 euros, whereas the Fullfade, if you were to purchase this, is 1991 euros with a 14 euro delivery fee on top, and you also have to wait for it to ship. Now even here in Australia, where this thing has free shipping, If I go to a JB Hi-Fi or an EB Games, I could pick up a QCK Plus and it will run me about $23 as opposed to the $29 of the Fullfade, and again, I don't have to wait for it to ship if I go and buy the QCK Plus. So you really have to look at whether the premium of having the fade design is worth the cost of the extra cash. I personally think that the design is cool, but when it comes to stains or keeping the design for a long time, that's really another thing. I don't know how this pad will look after 8,000 hours of use or anything, and I've just had this for a short week or so, but most mouse pads fade over time anyway, and you tend to buy a new one in the long run, so you can easily just buy a cheaper QCK and throw it away without feeling guilty, or you can go with this mouse pad and get something that looks a little bit cooler and is a bit of a novelty for that little bit extra. Now also on the issue of stains, I woke up 3 mornings in a row to small dots on my mouse pad, and I had no water or liquids near the pad, but somehow the pad managed to capture some moisture. Maybe it's from the air because it's winter here in Australia, but whatever, I haven't been able to remove these stains as of yet, and I don't know if this is just an isolated incident, but it did happen to me, so that is something to keep in mind. I don't know if it's a defect. Fullfade said that it wasn't, but I don't know, it's happened to me and I'm not quite too happy about it, but I'll try and clean it out. Now, I asked Fullfade about how to clean the pad because of this issue, and they said that warm soapy water and dishwashing liquid was fine to use. The pad can also be machine washed as long as the water is cold, as hot water could loosen the bond. I would, however, take these suggestions regarding machine washing a pad with a grain of salt, as all washing machines are different and may treat the pad in different ways. I was, however, promised some instructions regarding cleaning of the pad to be added on the website soon, so I hope that you guys could see that, sometime within the future. Hopefully by the time that this review is about a month old, they'll have something up on the site. Now, in terms of support, well, I personally had shipping issues, but that really wasn't Fullfade's fault. It was more so Australia Post's fault because they ripped the shipping label off and it was sent back to Fullfade, and then they had to resend it to me. But from my experience, the Fullfade Twitter is a great place to start. You could just shoot them a message about the pad and they'll message you back pretty quickly within a day or so and solve your problem or give you an update regarding the pad or give you some bit of information that you couldn't get from the website. Now, if you compare that to a big company like SteelSeries, you'll find that Fullfade has better support than that company. That company like SteelSeries ships thousands of these units to millions of these countries without little regard for really any customer support. Fullfade has to rely on customer support. They're a smaller company, they don't sell many of these, and I hope that they do sell many of these, but they're not going to be dealing with hundreds of thousands of customers, and it's not like they're selling multiple products, they just sell mousepads. So all in all, if you have a low sensitivity and enjoy the QCK Plus, or maybe you want something of a bit of a novelty, then go ahead and go for the Fullfade. I think it's worth a try. If you really want something that's tailored to Counter-Strike, you love Counter-Strike, then I think it's a really reliable and stable mousepad. And especially if you have that lower sensitivity, you're going to get a lot more out of this mousepad. And maybe it's just me not liking the pad in terms of the resistance on it. Some people prefer it and want to be able to hit those flick shots faster, but I personally don't like it. I will have to say that if you're a bit of a cheapskate, go for the alternatives that have stood the test of time, because you're going to get just as good as performance out of this pad as you would in those alternatives, especially a QCK Plus. So if you're asking me to rate this product, I'd rate it a solid 8 out of 10. It works as a mouse pad, and aside from the mice sliding around all a bit too much, the product does live up to the standard really. It has excellent tracking and a unique design that you can't find anywhere else. And I guess that's where you're paying the premium, is in getting that novelty. So if you wish to buy one, you can use the link in the description of the video, which will take you right to the website to purchase one. In the interest of transparency, I was not paid and am not sponsored by Fullfade.com. I was merely given this pad as a review sample. Furthermore, for every purchase using the link in the description, I do make a small fee for being an affiliate, so I just wanted to disclose that. But thanks for watching the video guys, and stay tuned for more reviews.